I think you had mentioned in one of your previous podcasts that you became an accidental sales influencer, if I'm not wrong.
In fact, if I'd have sat down all those years ago and planned to be a sales influencer on LinkedIn, it probably wouldn't have happened. The kind of selfish reason for even building a brand was to book more meetings and to hit my target.
Yeah. So you mentioned social selling. For the benefit of our listeners, could you please explain what that would mean?
I very much look at social selling as an opportunity for you to bring to life the problem that you solve on social media and start conversations about how you fix them. It's about building a community. It's about starting conversations about the space that you're in. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You're seen as someone who is interesting in the industry and who potentially might be someone to talk about when you're looking for that kind of solution.
Tom, a lot of our listeners are also small business owners and startup founders. What do you think? How should they think about building a personal brand? Should they try and associate their brand with their product or service? Or do they have to venture out and think about themselves as a separate entity from their business?
You represent the business in everything that you do. So my advice is don't keep those two things separately. If anything, be the voice of the brand.
Okay, so what's your go-to line when someone says they're not interested? Or was your go-to line when you were in sales, cold calling?
Yeah, I'd always acknowledge it. I think if someone says that they're not interested, it's a really good idea to let them know that you've heard that.
What's that one thing do you think salespeople think that works on a cold call, but it actually doesn't?
Trying to sound clever.
Hello everyone. Today on Let's Unpack, we're joined by someone who's redefining what it means to succeed in sales. Not by playing a part, but by being unapologetically himself. Tom Boston is not your typical sales professional. He's the brand growth manager at MySalesCoach, one of the most recognizable sales influencers in the EMEA region, and someone who's made a name for himself by doing the exact opposite of what most sales advice tells you. Back in 2016, he stepped into B2B sales thinking he had to be buttoned up and ultra professional. But it wasn't until he leaned into his real personality with humor and honesty that things started to click. From top performing SDR to personal branding coach, he's built a career and a community by proving that sales does not have to be stiff, robotic, or soul crushing. Today, he helps others show up authentically, build brands that actually work, and grow through content, coaching, and fun. If you're in sales, spend any time on LinkedIn, or just appreciate a good laugh with your learning, there's a lot in this episode for you. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Lovely, kind words.
So, for those who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because I guess you'd say I'm a sales person, but I've not actually been in seat and had a target as a seller for a few years now. So I often joke that I'm a marketer who's pretending to still be a salesperson because having spent many years in sales, I've now turned to the dark side, and I work on the brand team at MySalesCoach. So we are a sales coaching platform. We have a roster of industry experts, and we pair sales teams with those experts. So my job is to share that message, do that on LinkedIn. And as you said in your intro, some people call me an influencer, which still makes me smile to this day.
I think you had mentioned in one of your previous podcasts that you became an accidental sales influencer, if I'm not wrong.
Very much so, yes. In fact, if I'd have sat down all those years ago and planned to be a sales influencer on LinkedIn, it probably wouldn't have happened, right? If that would have
Yeah.
been my goal. My goal was to hit my sales target. I was in seat, doing a role, reaching out to people, and I kind of
Yeah.
knew my LinkedIn profile needs to have a little bit more about it. It needs to have some personality. I need to stand out from the crowd. So the kind of selfish reason for even building a brand was to book more meetings and to hit my
Yeah.
target. All of the other kind of the rewards, if you like, getting to go on these amazing podcasts, meet people like yourself, work with brands, speak to people from all around the world. That's kind of like a happy accident. But I'm
Yeah.
very glad that it's worked out that way, you know.
We'll come to the personal branding end of things a little later, but before we get into that, you built quite a reputation for making sales fun. You were a sales representative, and um, I just want to know what your journey was like. Was sales something you stumbled upon, or did you always have an affinity to this topic, this domain, in your professional sphere?
Yeah, like a lot of salespeople, I fell into it, right? In fact, most salespeople that you speak to, they will say the same thing. I fell into the role. For me, it was a wedding that we had planned. We needed a bit more money for a wedding because weddings are expensive, and I found a sales job that I thought I could probably do, and the money looked quite good. So I thought I'd kind of give that a go. Um, Things kind of escalated from there, right? You know, you find yourself in multiple sales roles, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed connecting with other humans. I enjoyed bringing to life a product or service, and it was something I was good at. And my wife will tell you, I like doing things that I'm good at because I like to be rewarded and told, good job, Tom."
So when was that moment, Tom, when you realized that your original approach to selling as a salesperson was maybe not cutting it in terms of the goals that you had in mind, and that moment in time when, in I think 2019 was it, where you realized that something needs to change, and you wanted to take a different approach to selling. How did that come about? Was it something that you thought about, or it just happened spontaneously?
Yeah, well, if we look at 2019, I had been a salesperson for a long time, and I'd had multiple SDR roles. In fact, the role that I got in 2019 was my third SDR role in as many years.
Yeah.
So I think for me it was like, okay, I don't want to do this the typical way again. I
Mhm.
don't want to sit down and write lots of emails and make lots of calls and get told, ring me back next week or speak to me next year. I was like, I'm kind of like done with that. I would love to explore social. I'd love to look at LinkedIn and see if there's an avenue there to just add to this multi-channel approach, right? Um, Multi-channel prospecting was working for me and my team, but social selling was like an extra string to our bow,
Mm.
and we really kind of leaned into it. As a result, it made my cold calls easier. It made my emails easier to get replies, and I actually found myself getting inbound leads as a
Mm.
result of kind of doing it that way. Um, which for an outbound seller it was like gold. You know, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. You know.
Yeah. So that ties into what you said, that you got a lot of bookings, inbound bookings, as a result of your content on LinkedIn. So you mentioned social selling. Uh, for the benefit of our listeners, could you please explain what that would mean in the context of sales?
Yeah, it's an interesting term, isn't it? Social selling, because if you take it literally, it kind of sounds like you would use social media to sell what you do. I very much look at social selling as an opportunity for you to bring to life the problem that you solve on social media and start conversations about how you fix them. So, it's not taking a sales email and sending that as a DM. It's not getting the script from a cold call and turning that into a LinkedIn post. It's kind of deeper than that, right? It's like you talked about there, human connection at the top of this call. It's about building a community. It's about starting conversations about the space that you're in. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You're seen as someone who is interesting in the industry and who potentially might be someone to talk about when you're looking for that kind of solution. Nobody wants to be sold to on social media. That's not why we're there, right? So that social selling term can feel a little bit jarring when you hear it. But my interpretation is, bringing to life the problem that you solve and outlining yourself as an expert in that space.
Okay. So I'd like to dig a little deeper into that. So I've been following some of your content on LinkedIn, especially, and it's quite unique, and it's in a way that it's unorthodox because it's funny, honest. You don't really beat around the bush. You address all the elephants in the room in a very funny and a comedic way, which I think has resonated with a lot of people. Did you ever worry though that uh, people wouldn't take it seriously? Was that ever at the back of your mind? How did you really navigate
Yeah,
that?
well, it was twofold, right? What if people don't take this seriously? So what if they're just like, he's just a joke, right? He's not a real salesperson. And then I thought, what if they really do think that I believe everything that I'm putting out there, right? This is the danger with humor, the worry that, like, what if people don't get the joke? And I've been very conscious of that over the years. I'm very lucky that I really understand our ICP, so the ideal customer profile. I've kind of lived in that world for so long that it gives me the confidence to go, no, the people who I want to see this and I want to get this joke, they will get it. It will resonate with them. And hey, you know what? The people who don't get it, they're probably not going to be someone that would be a potential customer anyway. And I'll tell you this story. I had someone message me a couple of weeks ago and he said, Tom, I love your videos. I work in sales. I have done for 15 years. I showed my wife your videos and she said, I don't get it. She didn't laugh. She said, I don't understand. I don't get it. And that was a massive compliment to me, right? Because it was like, I'm in the right lane here. The humor is supposed to be for sellers, sales leaders, and anyone who's connected to that space. So that was my approach to it. You can't really go too far wrong if you understand inside and out the person who is at the other
Yeah.
end of the content.
So how do you really advise SDRs or people in sales to approach thinking about building their own personal brand? What are the kinds of things that they should be thinking of consciously to start this path that you've also been on for quite some time now?
Yeah, well, my first tip is always you've got to do what feels right for you. And I coach a lot of salespeople who'll say, Tom, I'm not funny, right? They'll be like, I'm not going to create weekly comedy videos. And I'm like, that's absolutely fine. If you don't love humor and comedy, and maybe it's not part of your personality, then don't go down that route. You have to start with you. And people use that word authentic when they look at my content. It's because, and anyone who knows me will tell you this, I'm quite a silly person. I like to make people smile. It's my favorite thing to use humor in kind of awkward situations, or
Yeah.
when things get tough. I believe humor is the antidote. But if that's not you, you wouldn't go down that route. So you've got to do what feels right for you. Your brand should be a reflection of you. And I always say, start with your nearest and dearest, right? Speak to your friends, speak to your family, and ask them, what's my superpower? What words do you think of when you think about me? What am I really, really good at? And whatever they say, that should be the essence of your personal brand. That should be at the heart of what your content looks and feels like. Pair that with the problem that you solve, marry those two things together, and suddenly you're telling a story in an authentic way which resonates with your prospects. So yeah, that's the way to do it.
All right. So, Tom, a lot of our listeners are also small business owners and startup founders. What do you think? How should they think about building a personal brand? Should they try and associate their brand with their product or service? Or do they have to venture out and think about themselves as a separate entity from their business? Or does that really depend on the person? What would your advice be to them?
Yeah, I had this question recently actually from a small business owner, and my answer was, you are the business.
Mm,
You represent the business in everything that you do. So my advice is, don't keep those two things separately. If anything, be the voice of the brand, be the voice of the business. So yeah, I think it's so easy on LinkedIn to just talk about how great you are.
yeah.
And small business owners, they want to talk about how great their businesses are, right? Because why why wouldn't you? But what I found over the years that actually is, if you focus on the problem that you solve rather than the solution that you have to fix it,
Mhm.
your content resonates with more people. It doesn't look like you're trying to sell all the time. It doesn't look like you're banging your own drum of your business. It looks like you're genuinely interested in the problem that you solve. It looks like
Mm.
you're a voice for that area, and that's what small business owners should be doing. They should be trying to be really active in their field. That should be the ultimate goal. You want to be, 2-3 years time, you want to be on that list. Industry experts. These are the people that you need to speak to, and you get there not by promoting yourself and your business. You get there by speaking to the community,
Mm.
starting conversations, and being an active voice in that area. I look at a lot of my content as a conduit for conversation.
Mm.
The video that I post, for example, that's not really where the magic happens. It's the comment section. And I always say that my audience are much funnier than I could ever
Yeah.
be. And you can see that from my comment section. It's because I've opened up a conversation on social media, and now I'm seen as someone who's the kind of go-to guy for kind of sales, and that
Yeah.
was just by me talking about the industry in my own way.
All right. So, but Tom, I just want to double click on that. You've spoken about this at length before as well. How dealing with rejection is so important in sales, because even in your own case, like what we see on LinkedIn is basically all the good things, the good parts of your job and your career. But there's so much at the background, which is so hard to deal with. Having support systems is so important. What do you think? How should somebody actually balance putting themselves out there in social media while at the same time having to really sell? In the end of the day, it's all about the pipeline, it's all about conversions. Striking that balance, how do you advise budding salespeople to deal with that, really?
Yeah, so you don't have to be an open book. And I think a lot of people think about being authentic on social media as, oh, I'm going to tell everybody the highs and lows of my career. We see this a lot, this term building in public. I don't know if you've heard this term, right? This is where business owners are encouraged to give you a raw insight into the good days and the bad days. My belief is you've got to have a balance, right? You can't just show all of the shiny bits and the good times, but in the same breath, you don't just want to be constantly posting that you're struggling and that you're maybe not doing as well as you thought you would. Like it's got to be a balance. And I think the way to get that balance right is to, again, ask for other people's opinions. So a lot of people think that your personal brand is all about you, inward facing, my success, my failures. But something great happens when you turn it towards the audience and you say, look, tell me about your successes. What are some of your failures? Like when it becomes a two-way conversation, firstly, the algorithm rewards you because the comment section starts to fly. You don't have to be the person who's giving away all of your highs and lows. You can just start that conversation, and you can connect with other people. Now, they might send you a DM, and then maybe you do go a little bit deeper into that conversation about what you're struggling with. But I don't think people should live their career like an open book on the platform. You should think about getting the balance right.
Yeah. So I'd like to take this opportunity to segue into something that I'm really keen to know more about, the content aspect of things, your content especially. So how do you really go about brainstorming these unique, funny ways of communicating, the daily struggles of a salesperson, or when they, get a sudden rush of good news? Like, what goes on into your thinking process? How do you do that? Is it very spontaneous, or do you have like a clear structure? Do you set aside time in your week to think about these ideas? How does that work out?
Yeah, well, luckily I've got many years of experience of being a salesperson, often a struggling salesperson. And I've tried every trick in the book to try to hit my target, right? So I can tell those stories and I can create those videos that when a seller watches them, they'll go, oh, yeah, I've done that. I've not had a reply to an email and gone to make a coffee with my fingers crossed that when I get back to the desk, oh, they've still not replied. All these little quirks that salespeople do, I've done them. So that helps massively. But also, I'm really lucky now that at my sales coach, I spend a lot of time in the office and I get to be around people who are selling all the time and I get to hear the things that they're going through. And I'll often scribble things down and think, oh, that's really funny, I'll make a little note of that and maybe that'll appear in a video in a couple of weeks' time. I'll give you an example. I was in the office yesterday and one of the team said, I've sent a sales email and they've opened it 20 times and they've not replied. Why are they opening my email? And they said, they've just opened it again, 21 times they've read this email. And I'm thinking, that's something that sellers, not just in EMEA, but all around the world, will resonate with. And I'll make a little note and I'll think, I could create a piece of content about that. So yeah, I'm inspired all the time from my real experiences and the experiences of my colleagues.
Yeah. So what happens when maybe you have a day when you have a block, nothing's coming to your mind? So how do you deal with that? How do you maintain that consistency really?
Yeah, it's something I get asked a lot. What do you do when you don't have anything to post? Right? My answer usually is, don't post anything. This idea that we have to post content on a daily basis, I think is quite toxic, really, because imagine if you had to make a TV show, but you didn't have any ideas. That would be a terrible TV show. So I think that we have to give ourselves a little bit of credit. And, if you're having a really, really tough day and you don't have anything to post, maybe just walk away from LinkedIn. Maybe you leave 5 insightful comments that day, and you approach it the next day with a fresh piece of content. In the same breath, I've been doing this a lot, repurposing content from 6 months, 12 months, 18 months ago. If you're someone like me who's been doing this for a while, you've got the luxury of going, okay, I can't think of anything to post today. Let me look back at my analytics. Let me look at 12 months ago. Here's a top performing post. Is it still relevant? Could I maybe just post the same thing again? Yes. Could I make some changes? Yeah. Maybe I could be inspired by that post to write a new post. So I think, looking back, taking a look at what did well in the past, and remembering nobody is following your content as closely as you think they are. Nobody is going, he posted that 9 months ago on a Tuesday, and look at him. I think people get very kind of hung up on that. I've been just posting things from 6 months ago, the same thing, and it's been performing just as well as it did then.
Yeah, I think that point about repurposing really resonated with me, because even this podcast that we started a couple of months back, Let's Unpack, a big part of distribution for us is converting these into shorts, trying them out on different social media platforms, testing them at different times. So there is a lot of content to play with already. When you look within, you don't always have to try and build new stuff. So yeah, I really agree with that. Now I want to touch upon your current role at MySalesCoach. I would like you to take us through what exactly MySalesCoach does, and currently, how was your transition like from being in sales to pretty much in brand side now, in the brand side marketing. So yeah, a bit about MySalesCoach and then your role within the organization.
Yeah, great. So we are based in the northeast of England, in Newcastle, and MySalesCoach is a platform with a roster of over 80 industry experts, and we match sellers and sales teams with their perfect coach. So maybe in the past you've had a coach or a trainer, or maybe you've done a training day and then it doesn't really stick, right? You think, oh, actually, what did I learn 6 months ago? Or what was that training we were supposed to do? MySalesCoach is the solution to that, right? One-to-one coaching, consistent with an expert, paired with group sessions to set teams up for success and to fill those knowledge gaps, which we know even the most seasoned salespeople have, right? There's always something that we can be kind of working on. It's my belief that coaching is so crucial for sellers. It's something I never really had as a salesperson, which I think drew me to it, right? I'd been that guy who'd sat in the back of a 6-hour training session and almost kind of like fallen asleep and been like, what am I learning here? So this idea of short one-to-one coaching sessions with industry experts really appealed to me. I thought that's something I would love to have had when I was in seat as a salesperson. How I joined the organization, I actually started as a coach. So I was one of the coaches available in that roster. And then the way that it went is I actually joined the team and joined the marketing team. And now I help to build the brand. So you might have seen some of our content on LinkedIn. And if you don't follow us already, cheap plug here, but you can find us on LinkedIn, search MySalesCoach.
So I just want to take you back there at the first part of your response when you mentioned coaching, right? So I want to know, from what I hear is that there was an issue with the culture of coaching, sales coaching, and that's how my sales coach came into the picture. And now that you put a lot of focus on coaching the sales people in any organization or any team, and I think that's pretty interesting. Uh, do you ever think about going back into the sales side of things, or are you happy on the marketing front right now and doing content about sales nonetheless?
Yes, certainly. I think that that content that resonates with salespeople will always resonate, right? Um, I'm still a sales guy at heart, even though I'm on the brand team and I technically I'm a marketer. I often think to
Mm.
myself, well, really, I identify as a salesperson, and I think I always will. There is so much to learn when you're in sales.
Mm.
From the outside, it looks like, okay, well, if you make some cold calls and you build a pipeline, you could probably kind of get away with it. But as we know, for like full cycle reps, the role is so much more in depth. You know, you've got to think about negotiation, you've got to think about your
Mm.
methodologies, you've got to be able to multitask, manage deals that slip, all these kind of things, these skills that um, you know are often crammed into the onboarding when you join an organization in the first 2 weeks, and then you're told off you go. You know,
Mm.
we know, and I can see from the smile on your face that's not going to work, right? Reps need support, and it's often not the fault of the leadership. They want their reps to be better, right? And then they might even give them their time. Hey, let
Mm.
me do some coaching. Let's do half an hour. Let's do an hour. But what leaders often lack themselves is specific knowledge in these key areas. So we have sales coaches that are experts in AI, and we have experts in closing, we have experts in pipeline generation, we have experts in social selling. We have all these different elements that maybe sales leaders, oh, I'm not really the best person to speak to when it comes to that specific area. That's why my sales coach exists. It's to give teams access to
Mm.
multiple sales coaches and harness their knowledge to level up and grow their development.
I'm glad you mentioned AI there. So I like your thoughts on this matter as well. How do you think salespeople should, or look to leverage AI? We do know that it can be super useful for us, make our work quite efficient, but at the same time, overuse of AI can also be detrimental to our work. How do you see this, and have you embraced AI yourself? And if yes, how so?
Well, I'm a reluctant AI user, right? When AI first appeared and we first started hearing about ChatGPT, I made a lot of videos just kind of making fun of robots. I had a really good time making some videos about the robot overlords that are going to take over. But at my sales coach, we're really using AI um, in our daily processes, and I'm actually finding myself that if I'm not on board with the use of I might be getting left behind,
Hmm.
especially when we're looking at some of our marketing efforts. So when we're harnessing it for things like SEO, and we're looking at how we
Yeah.
can be more efficient with things like content creation. When we're creating things like blogs and repurposing content, we're using AI to kind of do all of that. So I've had to really get on board with it,
Hmm.
and to kind of go, yeah, okay, this is the future. I think that's the same with salespeople, right? There's probably sales um, people who will listen to this and kind of go, okay, yeah, maybe I'm a little bit behind. Maybe I've not embraced AI. Maybe I've just used a bit of Chat GPT. Again, like my answer before, it has to be a balance. And I'm already seeing it in the coaching that I do. People will ask me to review a LinkedIn post, and I'm just going, but you didn't write that. That was written by AI. So I can't help you with this because this isn't you. So I think it's really important to get that kind of balance right. When it comes to content creation, I'm using AI to kind of bounce ideas back and forth. But what I'm not doing is I'm not getting AI to write the content. I've been quite steadfast in that. What happens when you do that is people start to see your style of writing. We've all got different ways of talking. We've all got different ways of writing, and you don't want to lose that. I'll often get people message me and they'll say, Tom, I read your post in your accent. That's because I wrote it like I talk. So I didn't overuse AI. So yeah, embrace it, but don't overuse it.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned that you're the kind of person who likes writing sketches, skits, and like creating dialogues yourself. So I think that'll mess with your creative process if you start moving that over to like a Chat GPT or a Claude.
Yeah, but there are things you can do, right? So if I'm writing a sketch and it's excuses that sales reps might give for not hitting their target that month. So maybe they blame the economy, or maybe they blame the season. Everyone's on holiday. If I start to think to myself, could AI give me one or two more ideas? I can jump into ChatGPT. It might give me 20 responses. Maybe 18 of them are terrible, but 2 I go, oh, that's quite good. Maybe I could like reword that. So that's how I'm using it, just to kind of bounce ideas off the wall and see what comes back.
Yeah, cool. Our chat has really flown by. We're coming towards the end of the episode, but before that, I'd like to fire some rapid fire questions across to you on cold calling. Let's try and have some fun over here. So, what's the funniest objection you've ever heard?
The funniest objection, yeah, it takes me back to my early days when I was selling gas and electricity. It was probably when I used to call these small corner shops, and I was selling to businesses, but often I would end up calling news agents, even kebab shops, because everyone needs electricity, right? So I'd often be making cold calls trying to sell utilities, and maybe I would reach a takeaway who was taking an order at the time, and I would kind of make a cold call. So yeah, it'd be probably one of those, I would politely get told to never call them again, and I won't swear, because maybe they're in the middle of serving someone a kebab or something like that. So yeah, those were fun days of cold calling, calling those small businesses.
Okay, so what's your go-to line when someone says they're not interested, or was your go-to line when you were in sales cold calling?
Yeah, I'd always acknowledge it. I think if someone says that they're not interested, it's a really good idea to let them know that you've heard that, because the go-to for a lot of salespeople is, but, right? I'm not interested, Tom, but this is really good. I'm not interested, Tom, but I think that you should be interested, right? That's the worst thing you could do. If someone says they're not interested, you need to stop and go, I hear you. Loud and clear.
Okay.
Usually when someone says that, it's for two reasons. Either they don't have time, or I've not really explained myself very well, or they've got something in place.
Yeah.
Which of those is it? And they'll tell you, right? They'll either say, look, I don't have the time, which is fine because you can call back. They can say that I don't really know what you're trying to sell, which again gives you an opportunity to reflect and go, okay, maybe I need to think about my messaging. Or they'll tell you they've got something in place already, which again is a good thing, because you can use that knowledge in the rest of your multi-channel prospecting.
Yeah. And sometimes maybe they're not the decision maker as well. So that's a bummer.
That could be it, but again, they might help you, right? And I used to use Humour all the time. I don't want to annoy you again. I tell you what, if you tell me who the decision maker is, you'll never have to hear my dulcet tones on a cold call again. And when you do something like that, they'll maybe smile and go, you know what? Okay, John, you need to speak to John. Thank you very much. I'm one step closer to my goal.
Good stuff. So what's that one thing do you think salespeople think that works on a cold call, but it actually doesn't?
Trying to sound clever.
Why do you say that?
This is the truth. People in sales try to sound clever, and I struggled with that mainly because of my accent. Right, this is the hardest accent to sound clever in the world. So one of the reasons I ditched that is because it didn't really sound real. But when you try to sound clever, and when you try to sound smart, and that you know more about the prospects than they do, it's an instant turn off.
Yeah.
So I don't want to ring someone up and say, oh, hey, well, I know that in your industry there are several things that are really important to you at the moment, and they're going to resonate with you. It's kind of like, what do you know, Mr. Salesperson, Mrs. Salesperson? Who are you to ring me up and to try to sound intellectual about the problems that my business are going through? So instead, and I used to do this all the time, sound dumb, right? Hey, Mr. Prospect, hey, Mrs. Prospect, I'm never going to know as much about you and your business as you are. You're the expert when it comes to these things, but what I do know a little bit about is how we're solving a couple of these problems for some similar organizations. Would you like to hear a bit more about the success that they've had? And when you frame it like that, you're not trying to sound clever. You're not trying to lecture a prospect. You're simply saying, I might have something that's of interest to you that's been of interest to similar organizations. And I love this phrase. We use this at My Sales Coach. Would you be open to swapping some ideas? And maybe there might be a couple of things in there that you've not thought of before. This is the way to kind of not feel like you're trying to outsmart someone. It's a mutual thing. It's like, look, let's learn from each other, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Super useful stuff. Thanks, Tom. Final question in this rapid fire section. How did you used to hype yourself up before a cold call? Because I'm sure you've had tough cold calls, and then you'll have to make another one. That goes down again. You have to make another one. So how did you used to really keep that motivation level, the energy levels up throughout the day?
Yes. Well, I think there are a couple of ways to do it. You have to speak to the team. You can't do the role solo. You will just burn out, right? If you have a terrible call and you just kind of take yourself off into a corner and you come back to the desk, that's not going to work. So often I would, with the team, tell some stories, even, and it sounds kind of like counterproductive, but tell some horror stories, right? So speak to the team and say, what's the worst call that you've had this week? And just kind of laughing and joking and, understanding that it's okay and that things aren't going to go your way all the time. That's actually a really good motivation. My second answer is biscuits. I often would treat myself to a biscuit if a call went well. so that was a little a little treat for me.
Super candid. Thanks, Tom. So I think before we end this and I let you go your way, I just had one question for you. Is there anything that you're watching recently? Any sort of recommendations you have for our listeners that would enrich their lives, either professionally or just as a way to entertain themselves? Please feel free to share that with us.
Yeah, well, I have to say the My Sales Coach YouTube channel,
Mm.
because I got complimented on the content the other day, which is nothing to do with me. So I very quickly made it clear that it was Beck on my team who heads up the YouTube channel.
Mm.
But what you'll find on there is in-depth conversations with sales leaders about how they feel about coaching, their approaches,
Yeah.
their methods, and yeah, it's a great resource for learning from industry experts on what good coaching kind of looks and feels like.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my answer.
If I'm not wrong, there's a podcast as well. I was crap at sales. Is that the one?
Yes, yes, we have a podcast called "I Used to Be Crap at Sales," and what we found is that even the greatest seller, yeah, used to be crap. Everyone starts somewhere, which is why coaching is so important. So yeah, that's the podcast.
So, super insightful chat. Thank you so much, Tom. I'll be in touch with you, and let's hope to have you back soon again in the near future.
Sounds good. Yeah, really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks so much for having me.
Take care, Tom. Bye bye. Have a nice day.